My literacy story, language history, and learning has been molded by the hands of the environments that comprise my life. I, Alex Bromwell, am porous. I have absorbed my experiences and am a reflection of my background. My literacy is the clay that has been thrown on the wheel of self by influential factors that have combined to round out my literacy narrative.
I don't
This
know if it's got anything worth filming, but that you spent a whole semester or a year studying the animal life and the plant life and the. Do you know what I'm talking about? The book that you made?
In the first through fourth grade, I was enrolled in a program called Pine Gulch that focused on teaching us about native plants and ecosystems. I can to this very day explain that the call of a wren tit is resemblant of a ping pong ball that bounces to a halt, or that the California quail can be easily identified as saying, Chicago, not. Socialization is the slip that glues and holds my multiple literacies together as one. So, how did me and Walter used to talk when we were little? Did we have our own language?
Well, you and I, yes, you did. Him. But the two of you would have quite a few conversations where none of us had a clue what you were saying, but you either were very happy and very much in agreement, and you would rattle off things back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, or you would be very angry with each other, and one of you would start to cry, and the other one would continue going, la la, ala, blah, 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 blah. At any rate, and all of us were totally in awe of the fact that you would have this conversation for 30 minutes and we would have no idea what you were talking about.
Clay can be glazed and applied in an endless supply of decisions to create a unique identity and expression. Some works can be coded 10 to 20 times to deepen the meaning and enrichen the work. I come from a family of storytellers that have passed down stories over generations that have directly molded my literacy today. All right, Mom. What kind of stories did you tell us when I was a kid?
Oh, Jesus. Well, I told you my favorite story as when I was a child, told to me by my babysitter, who was a man named Moody Tidwell. And he used to tell us, and we could not wait to hear it again, the story of the North Wind.
Stories, would you mind saying it again?
No, I'd love to say it again. It happens in Siberia, and it happens in the fall when a widow who knew she had to feed her children all winter long was out with her children in the fields gathering the grain and harvesting and threshing the grain. And they worked very, very hard because in Siberia, with the long winters, if you didn't have all the food put away before winter set in, you would starve to death. And as it was a late harvest and an early winter, which is the worst of conditions. So she was out working and working and working before the winter finally arrived. And they were finally pushing, after they threshed all the wheat, they were finally pushing the cart back with all, and very little food because it was a late harvest, but enough to barely survive. So she knew it was how important it was, and she was trying to get it back to their house, their home, where she could put it away for winter. When all of a sudden a huge windstorm, and the winds came and they blew and they just whistled and howled, and and she saw all of this grain being blown out of the cart and up into the winds and across the fields, and it was gone. And she knew that they would starve to death, so she was extremely saddened. And that night around the fire, she cried and cried and cried. And her oldest son came down and said, "Mom, what's the matter?" And as she was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, she said, "The north wind blew away all of our grain, and winter's here, and we aren't going to be able to survive. We will all starve to death." And she was crying and crying, and the little boy was scared, and he stood up and he said, "I'll get our grain back, Mother." "How are you going to do that?" And he said, "I will walk to where the north wind lives, and I will demand he give us back our grain. I will walk there. If I walk solidly for 2 days, I think I can reach where the north wind lives." And the mother had no other choice. She knew they would all die, so she allowed her son to leave early the next morning and head north. And he just kept walking and walking and walking and walking. And he didn't have anything to eat. He had just one little sandwich she had made. And he walked and he walked and he walked until late at night, when he had to stop because it was too dark. And there was an inn. There was not really an inn, but there was a man who had a barn and a place where you could go in and get a drink. So he went in and he asked the man if he could spend the night there. And the man said, "Well, if you have money to pay for a room, you can." And of course, the boy had no money. And he said, "Well, then you go out and sleep in the barn and you clean out all the animal stalls, and then you can sleep in there." And he got up early the next morning and set out, because he had a long way to go to get to the north wind. And he walked and walked and walked and walked, and finally he made it to where the winds were howling. Woo, a lot of wind. Woo, 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 woo. North wind, where are you? Woo, 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 woo. "I'm over here. I'm over here." North wind, you He was very tired. And he started yelling, "North wind, woo, what do you want? What do you want? North wind, you stole all of our grains, you blew them up into the sky, and now my mother and my brothers and sisters, we will all starve to death. Please blow them back to our home, because it's going to be a long, cold winter without any food. We won't make it." And the north wind said, "I can't do that." And
We live in a world that is politically motivated by self-interest. It is essential that teachers model for students how to become critically literate. Jenks said that understanding how power is represented in a text is the first step in being part of the solution that allows for the reconstruction of identity that is just and sustainable. Before I, as a developing teacher, can teach students how to reshape power through language, I need to be critically literate and aware of what I bring to the classroom.